You are now entering the Horror Sanctum.
Hello, welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. In 2008, I would say that we got one of the best and most talked about horror films in, say, the last 20 years. The Strangers, featuring Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. But we're not here to talk about that today. No, we're here to talk about the remake that no one asked for. That's going to be a fucking trilogy, apparently, as well. 2024's The Strangers, Chapter 1, directed by Rennie Harlan. If you have not seen the new one, spoilers. No, I'm just kidding. It's the same fucking movie from 2008. There are no spoilers because it's almost exactly the same thing, which is maddening. But we'll get to all that in a second. Before we dig in, let's start with the one person in the group who hasn't watched the movie.
Well, this was kind of a thrown together last minute, and I didn't really have time to watch Deep Red and this movie. So I, of course, made the right decision and rewatched a masterpiece, Deep Red, and not what I'm sure will be an abomination. I mean, it's got 21% on the tomato meter, 44 audience score at this moment. Uh, just like what Jay said, it's a sequel that nobody asked for. I recuse myself from ratings because I can only shit on a movie I haven't seen so much, right? But I was like, you're gonna force me to watch this turd of a movie. If I had time, I would have still watched it, but I couldn't squeeze it in. We're trying to get ahead for July for vacations and whatnot. So I do love the 2008 Strangers film. I watched that one first come out. I've seen that a number of times. It still holds up. Um, I remember when it first come out, it was kind of being bashed a little bit by hardcore horror fans because they said it was like another foreign movie called Ills or Them, which has a very similar premise of a group of people en masse trying to break into a cabin and secluded area kind of thing. Same similar concept. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's only so many ways you can make this movie. I was surprised when they made Strangers Pray at Night as a sequel, which I still haven't seen, even though I own it. I'll eventually watch it. Unfortunately, I know how it ends. So, uh, but yeah, what did y'all think about this probable abomination of a film?
I liked Pray at Night. I think John watched it recently and liked it too. It got a lot of hate too, but I don't think it's deserved. Maybe it's something that people should go back and revisit. But I'm going first this time, technically. Suck it, everybody else. I'm going to ruin all y'all's takes like you do mine. First of all, we didn't need this remake. We did not need this remake. It's still relevant. It still holds up. People still watch it probably every year for Halloween. We didn't need this remake. There's so many other films out there that they could have remade. They could have made their own thing. Imagine that. But this was just one. I don't understand the reasoning. I don't understand why someone pulled this out and said we need to remake this. And if you did choose that path, why the hell do you make it the same movie? Why do you make it the exact same movie? The only difference is the beginning and the end. The stuff in the middle, besides one scene I'm going to talk about, is pretty much the exact same. Now, I haven't seen the original in a while, so they do get out of the house in the original at some point, right? And they get pushed back in, or are they always in that house? Anybody remember that? Because they do get out in this one. He gets in the truck, he gets smashed, yada yada yada. That felt a little bit different to me. I felt like most of the original was in the house, but again, I could be wrong. It's been probably 2 or 3 years since I've seen it. If they wanted to do something with the strangers, and like I said in the opening, like it was one of the most talked about movies, and the reason is if you look at Kellen's screen when he's speaking, oh, the masks were terrifying. The baghead guy, terrifying. The baby doll mask, terrifying. Like those masks are what made this movie popular, and the fact that it was just kind of brutal, and there was no reasoning behind it. There was no motive. Best line in the original movie is that I think Liv Tyler's like, "Why are you doing this?" And they lean in like, "Because you were home." That is one of the most terrifying lines in horror movie history to me. They tried to do it in this one. Instead, they said, because you were here, bump, bump, bump. Completely lacks any oomph in that, any emotion. So I'm going to spoil the new parts. The beginning is different than the original. The beginning, they're going somewhere. Their car has some issues. They stop at this diner with some backwoods people, get shacked up in this house where the strangers come and knock on their doors, fuck around with them for a bit. And then the ending where the main girl gets out, which has to, because we already know from the beginning this is going to be a trilogy. So I will say I am interested in the sequel because we don't necessarily know what happened after the first one. This one we're going to get to see. I think the first image has already come out. It's her up against a tree, I think maybe blindfolded, which I can't think of her real name, but she plays what's her name? Blossom. It's not Cherry Blossom on Riverdale. She's from Riverdale. So I was already skeptical when they decided to make this. I was more skeptical when the star was going to be a TV actor. And she doesn't do a terrible job. You know, she's pretty, she's fine. It just lacked it. I would have been more interested in a prequel, other killings that these people have done, or even how they started the killings. To me, in this one, the diner and the people is almost like ritualistic to a degree. I feel like everybody was in on it, or at least they knew what was happening and they weren't stopping it. So I would have been interested in a prequel more than this. I think you, John, and Nick on Facebook were shitting on Rennie Harling. He was an odd choice for this. I expected a young up and comer, and they went old school. But he did Mindhunters with Val Kilmer, LL Cool J. I fucking love that movie, and I will fight anybody who doesn't like it. Has anyone else seen that one?
Yeah, that was underrated. I watched it when it come out.
That was probably when you and I were at Walmart together when that movie came out in theaters. I saw it in theaters. It's fantastic. He also did Deep Blue Sea, which probably gets a lot of hate, but that's a good film too. That's a fun flick.
Has one
That
of the
was one
most hilarious deaths ever.
Yeah,
with
that's what I was saying.
Samuel
Like that's one of the
Jackson.
first time where we have the star of the essential star of the movie gets killed. Speaking segue just slightly, has anyone else watched Under Paris yet? You know, the shark movie that everyone's saying the next Jaws or the next best shark movie next to Jaws. Fucking awful movie. I hated it. I hated every second of it. Stop comparing shit to Jaws. It's never going to happen. It's not going to work. But that in that scene or in that movie, I was looking at reviews and someone said, I can't believe they killed one of the main characters in the very beginning. If you kill the main character in the main beginning, they're not the main character. You just met them. They're not the main character.
It's like in Psycho, where they killed the
right.
first lady 40 minutes in.
The first 10 minutes of Forget Paris are the only minutes worth watching that movie. So that's me shitting on something for you guys. But yeah, him being Rennie being the director was just kind of odd. Someone like, and I'm terrible with the names, but whoever did It, Invisible Man, like all these other people that are making these other remakes that are doing decent jobs, why not get them? Like, what made them go to Rennie Harling? What, like, was it his idea to make the movie? I don't know.
The director of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, man.
Oh,
we need that guy.
Who worked on that film? Mick. Did Mick Strawn work on that film?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Mick, for sharing the goddamn episode you were on so many fucking times. I will never forget that. I do love your dog, though. But the other thing I'll say, and then I'll pass it on to John, is if the other one didn't exist, this would be different. But the fact of the matter is it exists. Just like I've said probably 100 times on this show, Nightmare on Elm Street remake is terrible, but it's terrible because it already existed and it was done better. So if you're gonna do a remake, make it your own. Change it. Do something different besides change a word here and there. That I feel is why it's getting so much hate, because when you hear about it, I know a lot of people don't like sequels or remakes. I don't mind them as long as they're done well. So when I heard they're making The Strangers again, I'm like, okay, we've come along enough where we can make it scary or make it creepier, because it was already scary as shit. It's one of those movies that makes you check your locks every night before you go to bed. So I was kind of excited when it came up on the website that we use sometimes. I was excited. I think I sent you guys a screenshot. I'm like, look, it's on here. And then I watched it, and then I got mad, and then it was over, and I was fuming. So all that to say, I understand the hate, but also it didn't deserve probably as much as it's gotten. Like it's just because the original is there and the original is better. Um, it's kind of like Wrong Turn. They wanted to remake, relaunch Wrong Turn, and they did. And you know what they did? They completely changed everything. But you know what? People bitched about that. People complained that it
I
wasn't the
really
same.
liked that
So
remake because it was
the
so
remake is
different.
great, but you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You make a remake and it's exactly like the original, people are going to shit on it. If you make a remake and it's completely different, they're going to shit on it. It doesn't matter. But that's it. We'll go to John. And funny enough, Kellen hasn't seen the original, so this is going to be a completely 100%
Way to
clean day.
spoil my thunder. Way to steal my thunder, jerk.
I'm sorry, James Bond.
That was the only thing I had.
The first
I'm
Strangers.
never gonna let you live that James Bond thing down ever.
So the first Strangers, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's creepy, but there's a lot of things in it that are just kind of dumb, I think. The Strangers Pray at Night, I liked a little more because the pacing was better and the payoff's better. I kind of enjoyed it more. And there's some pretty cool kill scenes in it that are like 80s montages. And I don't know, I just thought it was kind of a fun film. This film it's a masterpiece of absolute monkey shit. I mean, on the lowest level, and I'm not even going to get mad. I'm not even kidding when I say in my opinion, this is the worst movie we've reviewed so far. Hands fucking down.
So I chose the right one not to watch, is what you're saying.
Dude, it is like from the start of this film. Okay, so the first scene of the film, you see a guy, spoilers, getting killed in the woods randomly. Why is he getting killed in the woods? What does this have to do with anyone else? Is it just because they're strangers and they like to kill people? I guess so. This entire script is like it was written by someone in Beverly Hills at a Starbucks who's like trying to get into film, or just like it's like all the cliches you can imagine, right? The main two people go to a small town. Everybody's acting sketchy, looking at them. The dialogue is horrible. There's a waitress that looks at them when they're talking, and she's like, you've been together 5 years and you're not married. You ain't put a ring on it." I'm like, how does this get past script? How does this push forward? Like, the dialogue in this movie is so bad. Everything they do in this movie is so dumb. Like, they go to this house. There's this young couple. They go to this house. Okay, and before that, they're at this restaurant. You see the Mormon kids on bicycles from the original there. Even though it's a remake, you see them there. And so that tells me that when they're writing this script, they didn't know whether or not it was a remake or a prequel. They did not know. I guarantee you, when they wrote this, they weren't sure what they were going to do with it. They finished it and they just said, "Well, let's just make it a sequel trilogy," because there's so much odd inconsistencies and things that try to tie in. I can always pick that out in scripts when people just are like not sure what they're going to do with it till later. Because you notice this trend in Hollywood where you'll ask them these questions and they'll go, well, they'll kind of just give you these vague answers. It's because they don't know. They don't want to answer it.
I could have sworn, did nobody else remember when they were promoting this film, like when it was like first being announced? I could have sworn it was going to be a prequel and they promoted it as a prequel.
It was,
remember that. Y'all remember that. I don't remember that. I always knew it was going to be a remake trilogy.
I thought it was a prequel trilogy, always.
Yeah, it is a trilogy, a remake trilogy. But originally, I had heard the prequel thing. But yeah, I mean, getting Rennie Harlan for this, Rennie Harlan did Die Hard 2, which is like such a fun sequel. Did Nightmare on Elm Street 4, a lot of interesting movies, but it's so random to pull a random 80s, 90s director out to get this movie.
Do you think they had a bucket?
Like we did? Let's
see who it is today. Oh, who the fuck is this?
Yeah, and then, so this couple goes to this house, they have car trouble, and so one of the guys, the husband, or not the husband, the boyfriend, is like, "Oh, well, there's a motorcycle outside. Let me take that into town to get some dinner." Why would there be a random motorcycle at their Airbnb with keys in it? Like, why would that be there? Who would leave that there?
Why would there
Whoever they
be an
murdered
open
first.
garage with a van and the lights on with the door to the van open in the Airbnb we stayed at,
Whoa,
John?
wait a minute.
Airbnbs don't make
That's hitting
sense.
close to home. That's hitting close to home.
Well,
My theory on that, John, was it was whoever they killed in
that's
the beginning.
possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's possible. I mean, I just, oh my gosh, it's just, so he leaves, and then the girlfriend is there. Someone literally comes in the house. She sees them, hides. The guy comes back. Okay, while he's going to get food, he stops and gets this burger. He, for some reason, decides to get the burger, and he's like, "Oh, this for my girlfriend. She's a vegetarian." Like, why is that in a script? Who gives a fuck? Why is that in what? Who writes? Literally, who writes this shit? Like, I literally could write a script drunk and come up with better dialogue in this movie. And it's like he comes back, she's in the closet. She's like, "Oh, someone's in the house." And he's like, "Oh no, you were looking at this clown painting on the wall." And she's like, "Oh yes, that's what it was. I must have just been stoned and looking at this clown painting that I thought was a human being and walked into this house." Like, it's so beyond absurd. And that's why, like, it kind of like frustrated me watching this, is like the script is so dumb. Like the boyfriend, he gets a shotgun, he shoots an innocent guy just like the first one, and then he corners one of the strangers. Instead of shooting them, he monologues, and then he's like, he says something about this is not my first kill, this would be my second kill, to be tough or something. And then by the time he says that, he gets hit over the head, and then they get tied up, and of course they die and cry, and it's sad. It's just the dumbest fucking movie. And the thing about this is, there's nothing about this movie to me that's redeeming at all. Even if you don't have the original, it's so bad. Because if you have money, you can buy cameras. You can make something look good. If I have $5 million and I study filmmaking for like a week, I'm sure that I could film some exterior shots that would look professional. That doesn't mean a film deserves anything. Like, and that's what they did. They had a terrible script. They had cameras. They had all this stuff set up to make money on this thing that never fucking needed to be made. And now we have to suffer through 2 more of them, of this journey where this lady is going to go all Laurie Strode or whatever and get her redemption back and be a fighter. And she's either going to die, become a stranger, or be a final girl, right? Like, we know where this fucking goes. We know exactly where this goes. I said I wasn't getting mad, and I'm getting mad even talking about it. Like, I fucking hate this movie so bad. So
wait till you. So I looked up the writers, which is, we agree, is one of the biggest issues. So 2 of the 3 I've looked up, they all work together on the same stuff. Due Date with Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. King of the Hill.
What?
The Freak Brothers, which is a Tubi original cartoon. And American Dad. So those are just a few of the things that you would recognize that they worked on. So they obviously have a deep history of writing great scripts.
See, that's so disappointing. Like,
because there's so many people out there. There's so many people out there that are writing such great films and horror movies. Why not just ask them to do it for you? There had to have been something on the back end with the studio or something where these people agreed to it, or they bought the rights, or whatever the hell it was. But there were just too many better options out there for this.
This reeks of, we have a very low budget, and who can we get for the least amount of money? Rennie Harlan and some writers from American Dad and King of the Hill.
Helen,
and he did it for a pack of smokes.
I gotta know what you think. Please tell me you didn't like this movie.
So like Jay said, I have not seen any of the other movies. So this is my Strangers opus. So bear with me. I want to point out, Jay already said it, but that mask it belongs. So your S tier masks are going to be the painted lady mask from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Michael Myers mask from Halloween. You could use both of Jason's, the original sack mask and then the hockey mask. Those are your S tier. This is definitely an A tier mask in horror lore or fandom. It's super creepy. It reminds me of a mix between one of Corey Taylor's most recent masks from Slipknot and the mask from Brightburn. Um, it's just such a chilling visual to see that when you open your door the lights come on and it's behind you. So great job creating a new entity in horror. No voice, no words, just pure terror. Can we stop with low exposure in movies? Like, we get it, it's dark. Let it brighten it up a little bit so we can at least see a little bit of what's going on. I would like to have a few details more than just eyes in a scene. Especially like when they're crawling under the house and she goes, obviously there's going to be a nail ready to go straight through her hand to make her whimper. That's obviously going to happen. But maybe we could see a little bit better that there's going to be something so we can anticipate the feeling of it and not just all of a sudden she holds her hand up and you kind of get a glimpse in the light that there's a nail through it. It's kind of, and I meant to bring this up in one of the last movies we watched, and I can't remember which one it was, but do you remember the big thing in the 90s and early 2000s that action movies and big epic movies did with the screen flare? Like, that was the big thing. Like, every movie had to have a screen flare at some point in time. The camera passes by a light and there's lens flare.
It was a big Michael Bay
all
thing.
these big movies. It was so overdone that now you don't really see it anymore. Blood on the camera lens is like the new lens flare, but for horror films. And I'm so done with that. And this kind of has that feel, that kind of cheesy feel at times. Some of the stuff they do to put you, like him twisting the bottle. Like, why would he twist the bottle while he's trying to hide from people trying to kill him? It's like basically being in the middle of the woods, somebody's hunting you, and you're like, oh, look, an air horn. Oh, well, chuck it and then get murdered. So it definitely has its faults. A few things that I will point out: the tiny town feel, the diner thing where everybody looked at them when they walked, it's 100% rural America. Wherever you go to a small town where people pretty much kind of know everybody, and you walk into a restaurant. It happened to us when we were in Missouri. We walked into this little barbecue place, hole in the wall, the kind of hole in the wall where it's cash only because they don't have electronics other than like an old cash register. Ding. And as soon as we walked in, everybody in there, you could almost hear the record, and everyone stared at us and we're like, barbecue, please. We'll eat in our car so that we don't get our out of town stink on you. So they do a good job of kind of building the unease there with the town folks, because and this is something I've talked about before. It's something that I miss in horror movies. And this movie, I feel, did well because, again, I have no comparison. So I don't know. This is my first Strangers movie, but it does a really good job with the stalking, with the building up to the point where the hits the fan, metaphorically speaking. It gets you uneasy. Yes, it's cheesy and over the top at times. It's super predictable. They go to the surprise, there's somebody behind you in a mask, well, way too many times. 2 at best. And this has like 4 or 5 moments where all of a sudden there's somebody behind them in a mask, whether they attack them or not. It's like, you've done it enough. 2 times, you get 2. There's 3 people with masks. 2 of them get to be behind somebody lurking. After that, you've jumped the shark. The kid, the girl asking for Tamron, knocking on the door, that was super creepy. The subtlety of that in and of itself is creepy, because you just imagine being in the woods in a house you're not familiar with, and somebody knocks on the door. Is Tamron there? And you never see the face because of the darkness, and then she's just standing there staring. It creates that uneasiness that I love in horror movies. Like I said, we got away from it with the torture porn, with the over the top kills and murders and stuff like that. We got away from the suspense building, where, I mean, movies like Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the first Friday the 13th, there's scenes where you expect something to happen and nothing happens. They build it to the point where somebody's about to die, and then nothing happens, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It keeps you tense, so that it's almost a release when somebody finally does meet their end. And so I think they did a good job with that in this, as far as it wasn't just straight to murdering. Yes, that guy dies in the beginning so that you establish that these people are psychotic and they're killing people for sport, basically. But then it's not straight. They could have just brought like a house party full of people and like the original Scream, and people just start dying randomly, which again screams S tier horror film. So I'm not trying to be negative towards that. I just think that I'm glad they didn't go the route of having 5 or 6 people getting murdered in this movie before you get to the final girl and her boyfriend. So I did like that aspect of it. The sound effects are overdone, and this is something that I've hated. Anytime somebody gets stabbed, anytime somebody's kissing, making out, it's always just. Have you ever kissed your significant other in a way that sounded like you were plunging a toilet? No, nobody kisses like that. Nobody
Sounds like macaroni or something. It's gross.
Yes, yeah, that's a wet ass pucker. So, I hate that, and that's again, I've talked about this before. Things that pull you out of the movie, and sound effects have gotten to the point to where they need to over embellish everything so that you can hear every, like, I don't know if they think that pulls you into the movie, but it doesn't. And part of that may be because I hate ASMR. So when they stab somebody and it's like no, that I've been stabbed in my hand before. It didn't go. I don't need the over the top. I get having some sound to drive home the intensity of what's happening, but it doesn't need to be so over the top that it sounds like literally somebody's sitting in a room with a tub of gack. Oh, look, he's getting stabbed with a butcher's knife.
That was a throwback.
Gack.
Telling my age with that one. The last thing that I'll say about this, why does he have asthma? Can anybody tell me what the purpose of him having asthma is? It doesn't create any more sense of terror by her being alone in that house. They could have had any other reason for him to go to town. He could have gone to town to get the freaking food. He didn't have to. Oh, I forgot my inhaler, because guess what? He never has an asthma attack. You know who did asthma right? M. Night Shyamalan in Signs. Like that scene where the boy can't breathe and they realize they've forgotten his medicine and they can't get it because the aliens are in the house, and he's having that moment where his hatred for God and his love for his son kind of come to a head, and that boy having asthma was integral to that movie. If this guy didn't have asthma, it changes nothing. You could have literally just
for an asthma attack to come, and it never came. It never came.
Yeah, they make out a little bit. They get creeped out because the girl knocks on the door, and he's like, "Oh, my inhaler. I guess I better go to town." And then he didn't even just go to town to get his inhaler. While he's there, he sees those people. He orders food. He could have literally said, "Oh, we didn't bring any food. I'll run to town and get us a burger or something." And it accomplishes the same thing of leaving her alone in the house to build the suspense that somebody is in the house with him, with her, that she's not alone. I don't know why they chose asthma as the catalyst for him leaving the house. When he leaves the house, he gives another reason for being out. It was such a dumb decision. It made zero sense. It's kind of like John said, some of the dialogue makes no sense. Some of the decisions made absolutely no sense as to why. Why would the guy know to be in his truck to sideswipe them when they get in the car? You know, if they're at the house terrorizing them and then all of a sudden they run and get in the car, did that guy take off running as hard and fast as possible while wearing that mask to go jump in his truck real quick so he could T-bone them? I mean, that, like, certain things didn't make decision. It would have made more sense if everything got quiet, they felt like the people left, then he gets in the car, and as soon as he starts it, the truck hits it. But no, he positioned his truck in such a way that they had a chance to start to leave, and then bam, hits them. And then his leg is stuck, but it took him like 2 seconds after the guy stopped ramming him to get his leg. Like, there's so many dumb decisions in this movie.
Well, it had 3 writers, and I wonder if that had anything to do with some of that stuff.
It may be. There may have been no consistency. Maybe they each wrote a section or wrote a scene and they pieced the scenes together. It definitely feels disconnected at times.
Or there's a Rennie cut. Release the Rennie cut.
Rennie cut.
Samuel L. Jackson's in it. But yeah, you know, I don't hate it. I hate things about it. There's parts in it where like I said, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't progress the story in a meaningful way. It feels like at times that it was a disjointed writer's room. Maybe they all were social distancing, and so they were doing it over Zoom calls like this. And be like, "Oh, I wrote this cool scene. Cool, throw it in the movie." So all that to say, what I would really love to do now is go watch the original Strangers so I can see the inspiration for this. And hearing y'all talk about how great that was makes me want to kind of see it to judge this movie against, because like I said, I have nothing to judge it again. And in my opinion, it does some things really well and it does some things bad. So terrible movie, I wouldn't say terrible movie, but again, I have nothing to compare it to. So that's my thoughts on The Strangers, Chapter 1.
But Abigail was a goddamn 0.
I will stand by that. I will stand by that rating. Now, granted,
We're never getting over that one.
I will try to take a gummy and watch that movie again with less judgmental eyes. But I went in, and I can honestly say I went into that movie expecting it to be great and was so disappointed that I, with an hour left in that movie, kept checking the timing like, oh my God, does not end. This movie never ends. This movie doesn't end. So I stand by that rating.
Whatever. All right, let's go with our ratings. I gave this a 2. Kind of middle of the pack. Like I've said already, if the other one didn't exist, it might be different. But yeah, that writing and dialogue on some of that stuff was just terrible. I didn't even think that some of that stuff you mentioned, like it does happen, like him getting in that truck, it does happen so fast. But yeah, so I gave it a 2. John?
Yeah, the original Strangers is kind of like a play on the Manson family murders, and it's not my favorite, but it's really well done. This is one of the worst films I've seen in like a few years. When you get rammed by a truck and then the guy backs up, I think like I think the reaction is not to sit there for 10 seconds and watch him as he rams you again. You would think that's a logical thing. Yeah, this gets a 0.
Well, and
I will give no points to this movie. You know why? Because other than the fact that they used professional cameras, that's all they did. The acting is not good. The script is horrible. There is nothing about this movie that gets any points from me. It's the worst. I honestly think this is the worst thing we reviewed so far. Yeah.
Flop episode tonight. All right,
and
Kellen.
To John's point about getting sideswiped, what that also didn't make sense to me, because I've seen enough police chases on TV where cars get absolutely obliterated by the cops in like a pit maneuver and they keep driving, but this one gets hit by an old Ford truck in the side panel and all of a sudden it can't start anymore. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like that vehicle that had nothing to do. If anything, your alignment's going to be shot, but you're still going to be able to drive off. He hit no part of that car that would cause the engine to stop working. That's not how cars work. There's nothing in the side panels of the car that are integral to the car being able to run. It's not like the ignition coils are in the door. As soon as he hit him, like, oh no, it won't. The alternator. He rammed the alternator that was in the passenger side door. So
should have bought American.
There's just so many things that didn't make sense, but I still enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. So for me, and I guess like and to Jay again with the Abigail thing, I can see why y'all can hate my because I have no reason to give that a 0. John at least has a valid reason that there's another movie that's identical called The Strangers that came out and did it better. So this adds nothing to anything for him.
And only 16 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, not even long enough ago to deserve a remake. So I can understand his 0. For me, this is a 2.5. Like I said, middle of the road. It's not something I would go back to. It's not something I hated. I didn't not enjoy the process of watching it. But like I said, now I'm a little more intrigued to watch the original, just so I can see why this might, and maybe it'll change my rating.
Maybe not. All right, so that's a 1.5. Round up to a 2. That's 2 points more than John gave it. But you know, he does have valid reason, and I'm interested in your take on the original, and I hope that watching this one first doesn't alter that, because it can do that when you watch remakes first. But all right, so Strangers Chapter 1. Why 2 out of 5 strangers, 2 out of 5 motorcycles, cheeseburgers, veggie burgers, 2 out of 5 piles of shit. That's it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and join our group on Facebook. Come back next week. I think next week's going to be a bucket movie. You want to pick from the bucket real quick?
Yeah, let's pick from the
Sure.
bucket.
And you know what? It makes sense that they would ask for a veggie burger because they're in Oregon. That whole state is backwards when it comes to
That
food.
is
so-
true. I lived there for a year.
You
There,
can't see my bucket
Very
because it's the
crunchy.
witch. It's the
Don't
witch
get-
bucket from McDonald's. But let's
Don't give
see.
these script writers any more credit than they deserve. Don't do it. Don't.
Don't do it, Kelly. Don't do
Must
it.
be the
Don't do
season
it.
of the witch.
All right, here we go.
Are you wearing a Stranger Things shirt because we watched The Strangers?
I didn't even put that together, but I am.
Nice.
Palace Arcade.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
That is cool.
1 and 2.
Oh, nice. Those
What
are
is
really
it?
cool.
Oh,
yeah.
And he
I've
just
still not
announced he's
seen
making
the
a
second one.
series.
I saw
Those
They'll
are
be
that.
making
really
a
both?
interesting. Yeah.
I still
So,
haven't seen part 2.
Oh, I think it's better, honestly.
I know you've
Creep
said
1
that.
and
Part
2.
2 is
I
better.
love part 1.
Spoilers.
Mark Duplass, fantastic. If you haven't seen that movie, watch it with us because they're fucking amazing. He just announced he's going to do a series. Looking forward to that. So,
And if you've never
Our
seen The
next-
League, watch that because it's amazing.
Chicano Batman. Well, Batman, Chalupa Batman. Is that what he has his name? Is good Chalupa Batman.
I think so. Yeah.
Chicano Batman is an actual band. So, anyways, all right. So our next bucket movie will be a 2-parter, 1 episode, 2 movies, Creep 1 and 2. 2 does have full frontal male nudity, so you have been warned. You can get excited about that. TJ.
So another Wiener
Come on.
Fest.
Another
More
Wiener
wieners.
Fest. All right. Signing off. I'm Jay with John Kellen and TJ, and until next time.
Keep it spooky.
I promise
Wieners.
I will never give a 0 out of 5 ever. This was like the only time I honestly felt this doesn't
I
deserve anything.
feel vindicated that I didn't squeeze this one in.
And it's just because it's so shameless and derivative. Like I've never like
But I know I'm
even
going to eventually have to watch it because there's going to be 2 other ones that will probably get
Shameless
roped
and
into
derivative
watching.
are going to be the name of my memoir.
it's shameless.
Also, my
Like I-
microphone was off for the creepy.
We didn't hear you.
I heard you. Yeah.
I
heard you
The
we heard
spooky
you.
part. Okay, well,
Yeah.
just now I was saying, but
Mm.
John, you probably would have liked this movie more if it didn't already exist. All right, like there are some dumb parts, but I think it's solid.
Maybe.
I don't.
Clear.
I think the only reason John gives it a 0 is because it was
Because
already
they'll-
made and
Yeah.
made better.
And I
Yeah,
think
it's
you were
just-
pissed you thought it
why
was
are
a
you
prequel.
remaking a movie.
Well, it's so bad. I mean, like there's nothing in it that even aside from the fact that it's professionally filmed, there's
Well,
like
there's
nothing
also
else, you know?
supposedly some direct pulled dialogue from the first one that's
Right.
back in this.
Yeah.
Like some
Okay,
of the
I'm
best
gonna-
lines, they just redid them.
I'm gonna go eat
Verbatim.
dinner. I have not eaten dinner. I'll get you those videos, TJ. Here, you don't need them right now, anyways, right? You can wait
No.
like 20 minutes.
No.
I was gonna say
No,
the one
this-
thing that doesn't make that really pissed me off in the whole film though, and I meant to bring this up, was the girl when she has the shotgun and she just starts laughing hysterically.
Oh yeah.
Like that
Crazy thing.
That's so dumb. That's overdone too, where they're just not afraid of death.
You know,
magically.
if the original hadn't been made, I don't know. I would probably be more apt to give it a 2 if I'd never seen it. I mean, The Prey at Night, I'd give that like 3 or 3.5. I really
Yeah,
like
that one was a lot of fun. It didn't
That was
deserve
cool.
the hate it got.
You guys want to hear something creepy?
Eddie's going first.
Well, I mean, after you.
Yeah, what you got?
I figured out last night. So when I was little, I saw this fucking thing when I was 3. It was like a Ninja Turtles looking thing in the hallway with like a trench coat and a hat and eyes, and I thought it was a dream forever. I remember seeing it, and then turns out years later, my sister told me the same thing, but I didn't tell her I'd seen it. And she described it and chased it in the hallway. I started looking it up last night, and I realized what I'd seen was what's called the Hat Man.
The Hat Man. You saw
There's
the
a documentary
Hat Man?
about that on Amazon.
Yeah.
I did
Nightmare.
not.
The Nightmare.
I did not sleep a fucking wink.
It was on Netflix
last night
originally.
because of this. When I saw that, I was like, okay, well, I want to forget this shit now because now I'm like, wow. I actually
Oh, that
saw
means
this
you
fucking
have
thing.
sleep paralysis, John.
What's the name?
The Hat Man.
I can tell you the name of the documentary in just a second.
It's called The Nightmare.
I feel like it's got something else. Maybe we're talking about different ones.
No, it has
The eyes and the
Watched in
hat's
the
what
last
got
calendar
me.
year, I think.
Oh,
But,
this
like-
one come out in like 2017.
I think like in my mind later when I remembered it, I thought of like Raphael from the Turtles movie because he's in that trench coat. That's what I thought because that's just kind of how I made sense of it, you know. But
On Amazon, the one I watched is called The Hat Man Documented Cases of Pure Evil. It's from 2019.
Oh, the one that put this on the map was originally on Netflix. Now it's on Prime, it's on Tubi, it's on Freevee, it's everywhere. It's called The Nightmare from 2015. Watch that, and you will probably. First off, it's terrifying to hear people's accounts of this.
This one wasn't terrifying. I gave that one a 2 out of 5. I didn't like it.
Oh,
It
the
also
night.
had
You need to watch
references.
The Nightmare then too.
Oh, what if I did the whole episode like this? It's like I'm a pagan god. All right. We're
That
still
gummy's
recording.
kicking in.
We're still recording.